Okay, thanks. I wanted to thank everybody for coming out. I am sweating from all sorts of body parts, and I think it's because there's so many people here that I respect and admire, so thank you. I used to write from a great, short-lived coffee shop where I could sit at a foretop in peace for hours. Soho Coffee, across from the golf course on Yusuf Lule Road. Soho was above ground level, maybe on the 3rd or 4th floor of a tall modern office tower. Kampala's weather varies from about 70 degrees to about 85 all year long. 2/3 of the cafe was outdoors. Soho's contemporary furniture was fashioned from a matte plastic that could have been from Italy, although the owners likely purchased it at one of the Chinese furniture stores in Nakasero. Guests conducted meetings at Soho. A few guests like me lingered on their laptops, and in the evenings the coffee shop transitioned into a wine bar. When my work went particularly well, or particularly poorly, night fell, and I could stare through the glass as glamorous people laughed with each other near the indoor espresso machine. I usually sat near the electricity outlets on the perimeter of the outdoor patio. I made a mental break of staring out at a nearby golf course, a rare, massive stretch of urban green space sunken beneath road level and dotted with tropical trees. A wide, even paved sidewalk between Yusuf Lule Road and the golf course offered a daytime procession. From my vantage above, I watched people walk that sidewalk. Young loves summer volunteers from Europe or America, bandana-clad and holding hands as they floated along in their strappy sport sandals. African couples, rarely touching, but walking, slowly, extra slowly, as they giggled. I saw people I knew, a fashion designer who created a line of laptop cases and pants made from local chitenge cloth, the scruffy journalist who would nurse conspiracy theories about the US government's involvement in Nairobi's Westgate Mall murders, another journalist who would leave Kampala's 7 Hills for a crisis reporting grant in similarly landlocked Juba, who would send back reports of sushi, tales of the high life that a conglomeration of pound and dollar salaried aid workers can savor in conflict zones. From my vantage at Soho, I could watch that sidewalk firsthand and from a distance, where it's easiest to get a sense of what's really happening. Marabou storks clustered amidst the greens, lifting their shiny black wings, their bald, veiny heads catching dappled sun. Gusts of wind sometimes blew the course's humid scent of greenery all the way to the nearby Fairway Hotel roundabout, where matatus and motorcycles idled in the jam and passengers held scarves to their mouths against combusted diesel. Soho kept a rack of newspapers. New Vision, the government paper, Daily Monitor, the non-government paper, the East African, the Independent, Bukede, Red Pepper. The gaps in coverage illuminated me. While the daily English language papers did mention the Had Black, the beautiful Ugandan woman who reportedly embezzled $9 million from her British lover and redistributed it to friends and neighbors who included prominent local fashion designers and musicians, it was tabloids like Bukede and the Red Pepper that erupted with coverage of the temptress and the tycoon. Oil reporting further differentiated the periodicals. What the Daily Monitor said about President Museveni's secret oil development negotiations never appeared in the New Vision. After all, speculators' files were sealed. Comments refrained. In 2011, information was just surfacing. A debate about running the world's longest heated oil pipeline to the Kenyan coast, amidst pressure from environmentalists to preserve the world's oldest transboundary protected areas, critical sources of tourism revenue. The oil sat underneath the grasslands and mountains and rivers and lakes of the Albertine Rift, a fault and rift system dividing the Somali plate from the rest of the continent. Underneath leopards, hippos, elephants, crocodiles, bush babies, water chevrotain, water buck, cob, topi, baboons, chimps, monkeys, flying squirrels, and 46 Guinea-Congo biome bird species, which could be found nowhere else in East Africa. I knew people were of mixed mind on oil. Wouldn't it grow business? But would it trickle down? Museveni had just returned to power in an election that international observers called flawed. He had changed the constitution in 2005 in order to lift presidential term limits, and he was one of the longest-serving presidents in Africa. Citizens didn't trust him. but he was safer than the alternatives, especially among citizens who remembered war, who missed brothers and fathers who disappeared in one of the continent's longest-running civil conflicts, people who couldn't feel safe in northern Uganda until 2010. Museveni's negotiations made the oil terrifying or irresistible, depending on a person's proximity to leadership and faith in extraction. A friend of mine who worked for the Uganda Wildlife Authority in the game parks showed us cell phone pictures of discovery rigs on his land, officially said not to exist, but existing, definitely, according to Paul's cell phone. There was one story that unified the media outlets, that was on the tip of everyone's tongues: Uganda's exploding population. The United Nations released its World Population Prospects report, which put the country's 3.2% growth rate third in the world behind Yemen and Niger. The 5 million people who called Uganda home in 1948 had become 31 million by 2010 and promised to become 50 million by 2030 and 100 million by 2050. 100 million by 2050, I remember the headlines reading in red block letters. Reports said that Uganda will join China and India as one of the 10 most populous countries on Earth by 2100. We are growing too much, my Soho server said when he saw me reading the news. He smiled as many others did. Many Ugandans saw the country's population growth as a good sign, a stepstone on the road to global prominence. Many cracked good-natured jokes about virility. Some people did worry about the numbers, looked at the tropical rainforest that people illegally chopped for charcoal cooking fuel, looked at how many trees used to cover Uganda, one of the most heavily deforested countries in the world. Some people scanned their country's idyllic landscapes and calculated what looked wild and free were carefully divided farmsteads, back to back to back, through valleys and up the sides of mountains. How many people can fit into a country the size of Oregon?